All right, on to this. California Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom appears to have a big fan, that's a euphemism, at Vogue's, if the magazine's latest piece on him is any indication. All right. The profile begins with this gushing, frankly inappropriate description of the governor. I hope you've already eaten. All right, let's get this out of the way. He is embarrassingly handsome. His hair seasoned with silver, at ease with his own eminence. It must drive Trump nuts, she writes. Newsom, lithe, ardent, energetic, a glimmer of optimism in his eye, Kennedy-esque. Add to that his stunning wife and 4 adorable kids. The piece goes on to say this: Newsom's lanky frame was folded onto a sofa, a bit too low slung for him. This made him lean back, away from me. Or it could be that his body language had nothing to do with ergonomics and is a function of Newsom's quality of being at once gregarious and aloof. Charles, I found this beyond inappropriate. If I were him, I would have gotten a restraining order. And I also found it so inadequate, so undeserving of the American public. I mean, granted, I don't expect more from Vogue other than a piece on his fashion. But frankly, why in the hell is this appropriate for a potentially presidential candidate to give us that drivel?
Well, it's a lot of words to cover the fact that he doesn't have any substance. So you focus on the style and the look and the hair and the family and interpreting how he's set. None of this has anything to do with qualifications, track record, or anything else, right? So we've been down this path, right? President Obama, he looked amazing, and all of these people who look good. Well, who was that guy in Texas who said I was built for this? He was on the cover.
O'Rourke.
Yeah, O'Rourke thought he was cute, right? So this is dumb, right? This is like, we want to inform voters, right? So when Vogue does these sort of puff pieces, it just further shows me that they should try to stay away from this stuff. But maybe they influence a few folks, but to your point, it's extremely embarrassing for all involved.
That's right. Could you imagine if the subject of that article was a woman? I mean, it feels like a woman, but could you imagine the uproar, how inappropriate and unacceptable that would have been, and yet somehow that made it past the publishers. Meantime, as Charles pointed out, they didn't ask about your home in the Palisades that burned down. They didn't ask him about the insurance crisis, about the homes in Northern California still reeling from those fires, the homeless crisis, the sinking ship that is the budget and the state there, the entire ruin that he has levied upon my home state. No questions about that.
Well, why would you? I mean, those would all point to a colossal failure, not someone who's live and energetic and embarrassingly handsome. I mean, it felt like a piece of smutty erotica.
Yes.
I was surprised she didn't say, is there anyone who's governor of California right now who likes me more than a friend? If Miranda Priestley were the editor-in-chief of Vogue, this would have never passed muster. I mean, we need to, anyone who is seeking the highest office, the most powerful position in the free world, in the world at large, you need to be skeptical of these people. They need to be put under a microscope and challenged, not just when they're Republicans, not just when they're President Trump. Anyone who wants that much power and authority, you need to grill them, not tell them what a hot piece of man steak they are.
It's such a joke that in 2026 that was allowed to print when aren't we well past the age of the outside? Isn't this exactly what these people on the left have been decrying the entire time, which is the superficiality, the privilege of being a white male, and then here she is just lapping it. I mean, it honestly revolts me. Here's more from that interview. One of Gavin's closest friends met Newsom well before he stumbled into a career in politics, back when Newsom was just a hustling San Francisco restaurateur and wine merchant, honorary member of the wealthy Getty clan, an in-demand bachelor about town. At the time, his friend did not see a mayoralty, governorship, or a presidency on the horizon. Gavin's too much of an artist, he explains. He's a sensitive soul. And how do you traction that, Kaylee, with, as well, in that same interview, them talking about how he struggled growing up, which he actually didn't. It's a myth that's been perpetuated by those sycophants. He was a de facto Getty, and he was a playboy. That's why he's a serial cheater. That's why he broke up other marriages. I mean, he enjoyed that lavish lifestyle in San Francisco in the marina and everyone having to just digest Plump Jack all the time. He's basically been a favorite golden boy, and now this perpetuates it.
Yeah, I learned a lot about his upbringing from you, having been in California, and these little things you don't really know if you're outside of California. You've got to really be there and know the background and history of Gavin Newsom. You know, I endeavored to read this entire piece but I could not make it through. And I can make it through a lot of left-wing pieces, but I could not make it through this one. They said he has the executive strut of a self-made millionaire. But it gets worse. I made it about 3/4 down, and then I get to this. The sun slanted in through the windows, bathing Newsom in an oh-so-California magic hour glow. Okay, so he has a California magic hour glow. And then she said she was having a hard time taking in the man, his actual molecular reality, immaculate, fantastic at gab, like a wind-up doll. This is weird on so many levels. It's not objective by any standards, but let me tell you this. Welcome to 2028. This is what we are going to get from now until 2028. He is the front runner by many polls. And it is going to be just as they did with Kamala. I said as soon as Kamala came out, it's going to be Kamalot. You're going to hear about this fictitious land, Kamalot. That's what we heard. It didn't work. But they are going to try to do that with Newsom over the next 2.5 years.
What you just read sounds like an ad for him in OnlyFans.
Oh, my goodness, it does.
I mean, it sounds like what you're going to get in the pictures that, that he posts.
Yeah.
You
You said
Olivia
something.
Nuzzi is writing under a pseudonym.
Oh, gosh.
Totally. Check
What
the
you
text.
said about our obsession and how unbelievable it is in 2026 with the outside. Oh, goodness gracious, what would social media do if we weren't so obsessed with the outside? My question is, how bad are his polling numbers early on? Because this sounds like somebody, because you know he doesn't just agree to these things. He's got a team that helps him decide, well, what are we going to do next? And who do we want to talk to? We all know this. We've interviewed people, so we know how it works. It doesn't just happen like that. So what is he lacking this close to a situation that's still 2 years away? What is he lacking right now that they think they can fix by having someone fawn over him for several pages? And not just fawn, that was straight up nasty if you didn't know that this was about a politician that wants to run for president.
It was like
Just
50 Shades
straight
of
up
Grey.
nasty.
It was
Yes.
50 Shades of Grey. I felt uncomfortable.
It was the
reading it.
51st shade.
Yes. Yeah.
Speaking of pseudonyms, are you sure he didn't write it?
That's right. Love
No, we're not.
All right. Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Compagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee mcenany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.